Today we're talking about Psylocke, a very popular character, but a lot of people may not know her origin or what she actually does. So we're gonna get into that. While we're talking about her, I'll be in the background attempting to draw the character. Whether or not it's good or bad, I'll leave that up to y'all. But I am in the process of, getting better. So work with me. So who is Psylocke? Well, in order to understand that, you have to understand that she's not one but two characters. The first of which, coming from the original Captain Britain comics, Elizabeth Betsy Braddock, sister of Jamie Braddock and Brian Braddock, Captain Britain himself. She was originally a supporting character, but her popularity spoke for itself, resulting in her being rolled over into the main X-Men lineup. It wasn't too long before she saw action in the X-Men series, where she was kidnapped by Mojo, an intergalactic TV show host that wanted to use her and other mutants for, gain on his TV show across the galaxy. But eventually they got saved. Another character to note of this little situation is a character by the name of Spiral, who works for Mojo, though not of her own free will. Why she's important will become notable a little bit later. After the Mojo situation, Psylocke really found herself, just being around the X Mansion. There was a situation where it got infiltrated. I believe it was Sabretooth that infiltrated it. I'm not 100% sure. I should have checked it, but, here we are. Now, Betsy Braddock isn't the Psylocke that we know and love right now, so she doesn't have the skills to handle a situation like that. But she handled it long enough for other people with suitable skill set to come and handle it. So, dub on her book. But sometime later, she ended up in a situation which resulted in her losing her eyesight and eventually having her travel through the Siege Perilous. What the Siege Perilous is not fully important right now for this little situation. Maybe we'll talk about it at some other point, but it's not super important right now. All you need to know is after traveling through the Siege Perilous, she washed up on the shores of Japan. This is where the second part of Psylocke comes into play. Quanin. Now, Quanin is a crime lord assassin. She works under a guy whose name I can't fully pronounce correctly, and I'm not going to try it before I know I'm going to butcher it. So for henceforth, we would know him as N. Now, Quanin came into contact with Betsy in the middle of one of her missions that she was supposed to be carrying out. Betsy being blinded and having complete amnesia at this point, doesn't know what's going on. She ends up using her telepathic powers, disorients Quanin, and they kind of just go about their business until Quanin and Matsuo, who prior to this had a love relationship and had an agreement about whether or not if they had to come to a situation where they would have to kill each other, they would do it. Now, Matsuo and In don't like each other, so they kind of had a little war going on. And Quanin, working for In, had to fight Matsuo. I don't know if I mentioned that Matsuo is the leader of the hand, but here you go. Now, the fight between Matsuo and Quanin resulted in a near fatal accident for Quanin, resulting in severe brain damage. The hand, having a vast network of information, knew exactly who Betsy Braddock was, so they decided to use her and her telepathic abilities to try and help Quanin. How they did this was the use of Betsy's telepathic abilities, the hand's science. The Mandarin somehow came into play, so they used his rings, and Spiral, who we talked about previously, has magical abilities. And Spiral is very important to the situation because Spiral changed both Quanin and Betsy on a fundamental level to where they were identical. Like, they are legit identical to each other. And that is also why Betsy looks Japanese instead of British. Because of this fundamental change, Betsy inherited some of the memories of Quanon, such that she had all the assassin abilities and training that Quanon had, which explains why she's so adept at fighting when she had no prior training. A slight side effect of this situation was, once again, Betsy had memories of herself and Quanon, whereas Quanon had no memories, so she was a complete blank slate. Because of this, Spyro informed In that she was, a fresh palette to be, painted upon, and In wasted no time sowing deceit into her brain. Betsy, on the other hand, for a little while, because of her assassin training that she had no formal knowledge of, became the assassin of the Mandarin for a while before she broke free and rejoined the X-Men. Once filled with enough lies and deceit from In, Quanon decided to go to the X-Men and confront her other half to convince them that she is the true Betsy Braddock. Being quite easy for her to, gain access to the X-Men mansion because, once again, on a fundamental level, they are exactly identical, to such that they even have the same scent, to which even Wolverine can't tell the difference. But the only way he knew that something wasn't right was because he said Betsy had a different scent before the whole Siege Perilous situation. So that's how he knows that something isn't right. Not even Jean Grey and Professor X could, discern what's happening. So as a result, both Betsy and Quanon, who by this point goes by Revanche, traveled to Japan alongside Gambit and Beast so they could figure out what the hell's going on. While there, they come into contact with Silver Samurai and make slight work of him, being noted that they fought so well in tandem because of the training that Quanon had and the memories from Quanon that Betsy got. And for some reason, Silver Samurai had a scroll that had all the information that In was telling to Quanon, and it all being a lie. Now, why In wrote all this shit down? I don't know. That seems like a Ricky mistake for like a crime boss, but here we are. Quanon and Betsy finally decide to confront In about the revelation that they have. And In's like, hey, no, 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 no. I don't have nothing to do with that. Who you're looking for is Matsuo. So they decide to go to Matsuo, and Matsuo's like, hey, I don't know nothing about no cloning, no mind transfer, none of that. I'm completely washed of this situation. And for the most part, they kind of just drop it. And so for a little while, we're just living with two Psylocks. Well, Psylocke and Revanche. That is until we get to the legacy virus situation. And if you don't know what the legacy virus is, I'm happy to tell you. You see, Apocalypse in the future had a virus that was intended to kill off the remaining non-mutant humans on Earth. Unfortunately, it was killing indiscriminately and was scrapped until a guy named Strife got his hands on it and used it to, switch it and make it kill only mutants. Notable mutants that got infected by this are Ileana Rasputin, the sister of Colossus, and Revanche. Revanche, not wanting to succumb to this virus, travels back to Japan. But before she did that, she took the bionic eyes out of the body of Betsy Braddock, because remember, Betsy was blinded. She took the bionic eyes, left them alongside a note talking about how she intended to deceive everyone, saying that she was the true, original, and traveled back to Japan where she confronted Matsuo and informed her that she was dying and wanted Matsuo to kill her before the virus could. Having that once love that they did, he agrees and kills her. But when Matsuo kills her, both Betsy and Archangel, aka Warren Worthington, whom Revanche was having a romantic relationship with, felt it. As another side effect, when Revanche died, she sent out a little wave that left an imprint on Matsuo's mind. Spiral, after having, I guess, a little change of heart, decides to confront Betsy and tell her her hand in the whole body swapping situation, and tells her to look into the eyes that the Betsy's body had, and to the which she sees the whole situation and then travels to Japan, to which she meets with Matsuo, who had formerly killed In because of his whole hand in the situation. While meeting with Matsuo, the imprint left on his mind by Kwanin speak I guess resonates with her mind and completely removes all the memories of Kwanin from Betsy, except for the physical attributes, the fighting. She still keeps all that, but she lost all the memories. Matsuo also pleads with Betsy to kill him for his, I guess feeling guilt for the whole situation, even though he didn't necessarily know about it, kind of, sort of. To which she agrees, and that's pretty much it for Betsy, except for later on she becomes Captain Britain for reasons that I did not look up because it wasn't super important because we're talking about Psylocke, not Captain Britain. But yeah, that's pretty much the story of Psylocke. So, what is her powers actually? Well, in order to understand, you have to understand that once again, when Spiral was switching their minds, she also slightly enhanced the telepathic abilities. So both Quanin and Betsy both had psionic abilities as well as Quanin's empathic abilities. Also, when Spiral was changing their bodies, she allowed them to make psionic projections of weapons. Betsy having the psionic dagger that's iconic to Psylocke, and Quanin having a psionic katana. Another thing to note is that Betsy, after the whole body switching situation, tried to initiate a romantic relationship with Cyclops, and obviously Jean Grey wasn't having that shit, so she quickly dropped it. And in terms of the design that they chose, so to note, Chris Claremont and Herb Trimpe created Betsy in the original Captain Britain comics. And then later on, when they were introducing Quanin, Chris Claremont and Jim Lee created the revamped Psylocke. So Jim Lee being, one of the GOATs, and Chris Claremont being a very, very good storyteller, they knew what they were doing. Because let's face it, us Americans, we love that ninja shit. We love it. We can't get enough of it. Especially with a bombshell, femme fatale, being an assassin. Come on, bro. Come on, bro. They knew what they was working with. But overall, I think that's pretty much it for the character. There's not too much else to talk about for Psylocke, seeing as she's never really been like a main character. She's kind of really always been on X Force, which is the covert X-Men team that has to make the morally ambiguous choices. But seeing as, she's got this assassin background now, she kind of doesn't really have a problem doing the things that need to be done. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for the character. It's a pretty cool character. I hope this gives some of y'all that, never really knew, where she came from. Hopefully this gives you guys a little bit of insight on that. But, I'm going to be doing these, every week, or at least try to help me, number one, get better drawing. But, just provide a little bit of information on some characters, DC, Marvel, anything else, anime even. But yeah, until then, I'll catch y'all later.